Please welcome back your HardTech moderator and technology columnist to the CBC Radio, Manjula Selvarajah.
Welcome back, everyone. And now it's time for our second panel of the day, inspiring the next generation of tech titans with, of course, some incredible Canadian entrepreneurs. This panel is about building and scaling companies and what it's like for founders to navigate that complex, unpredictable journey. I'm delighted to put those questions to these three inspiring founders who are also champions of entrepreneurship. They are the impressive Linda Zadeh, founder and CEO of Epic Semiconductors, the incredible Julie Angus, co-founder and CEO of Open Ocean Robotics, and the incomparable Ray Minato, president and founder of Inertia Product Development. Good morning, or good afternoon, I should say.
Good afternoon, Angela. Thanks for having us.
How are you all doing?
Great. It's a beautiful sunny day. Can't complain.
Oh, gosh, you know, that is one of the good things to come out of all of this, right? That we're in the summer now. So I'm so glad you can join us. I mean, there's a lot of interest in the audience to hear from people who've traveled that journey, to hear about, you know, your challenges, your successes, to hear your own stories about building your product line and your products, and also to talk about what the ecosystem needs to make more people like you happen. So let me start. I want to hear your stories first. You're all founders. What was the spark? What kicked off this journey for you? Julie, I'll start with you.
Sure. Thank you, Manjula. So for me, in my previous career, I founded 2 other companies, and I also spent a lot of time exploring the ocean in small boats. So one of these adventures was rowing across the Atlantic Ocean from Portugal to Costa Rica. So this was a 5-month journey on the open ocean in a very small boat. And it really gave me the opportunity to see the beauty and also the challenges of being on the ocean. And one of those challenges is that our oceans are very poorly understood because it's very challenging to go out there and get data. So that's where the idea of creating autonomous boats or robot boats that could go out there and collect data without anybody on them first started.
Now, tell me a bit more about Epic Semiconductors. Sorry, apologies. Open Ocean Robotics.
So Open Ocean Robotics, we produce autonomous solar-powered boats that help us understand our oceans more safely, more sustainably, and more persistently. So right now, to get ocean data, generally you have to send out a ship, which is expensive. It can only go out in, you know, limited conditions, good weather windows, and of course it has to have people on board. So instead, you can send an autonomous boat, which is much more affordable. It can go out for months at a time potentially, and it can help that collect that data that's really essential for a lot of offshore industries, governments, and research.
Linda, what was the spark for you?
Yes, thank you very much. Greetings to all, and thanks for having me here. I was always fascinated by medical sensors and devices. So over a decade ago, I built a machine that could monitor a person's heart signal from a distance without any connection to the subject's body. And this device was selected by Wired Nexus and Hitachi to be exhibited at the Festival of Innovative Products and Technologies in Los Angeles. And over there, I was exposed to a great amount of opportunity and privilege that later built the foundation of Epic.
You know, it's fascinating to me that both of you have shared stories about sort of life experiences or certain moments that sparked that journey for you. So talk to me about this company, Epic Semiconductors.
Right.
What does your company do?
Yes, Manja, I believe we are all aware of the strong impact of microcontrollers. It changed the world. But a microcontroller needs to be programmed. It depends on batteries. When I started Epic, I planned to build a machine that resembles nerves and brain cells. So in the past 10 years, I focused on developing a nano-sized chip that doesn't require batteries, doesn't need to be programmed. And this smart DOS can realize the dream of connecting everything to the cloud.
Amazing. Ray, I should admit that both of us actually may have taken a course together in university. So
That's right, yeah.
and we actually haven't seen each other in decades. It's so good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Talk to me about Inertia. What was the spark for you in starting that company?
Sure. Well, I had a bit of a career before starting Inertia, so I'll start there. As you know, Manjula, we studied mechanical engineering at Queens, and upon graduating, I got a job in automotive manufacturing because I liked cars and things. That was about the closest thing I could find at the time, and started as a process engineer and program manager, and then engineering manager. And then after about 3 or 4 years of that, I was like, well, this is great, but I really wanted to design cars, and so I quit that to much to my parents' chagrin, to follow a career in motorsports, starting out as a mechanic at half the salary, because I wanted to get into vehicle design and engineering, and that was a way in, I guess. So I spent about 7 years doing that, designing race engineering and cars that, like Indy cars that supported the IndyCar series, the IndyCar series, sports prototypes, so things that would race at the 24 Hours of Le Mans and Daytona. And after doing that for a while and achieving my childhood dream and winning at that, I still kind of felt like, I'm not sure, somewhat unfulfilled, I guess. And I think looking back on it, I was more dissatisfied about how I was doing the work, and not so much the work, and some of the companies I worked for, I just didn't, jive with. And so I spent, probably a couple of years wondering, what am I going to do next? And if I go to another place, will it be the same thing, the same experience? And that really caused me to think about, well, I like what I do, so how about I just do it for myself? And so that's what I did. I started a company, not just focusing on the things that I love doing, but focus on how I was doing it, how I deliver the service of product design and engineering, and the customer experience that surrounds it.
What does your company do and who do you serve?
So we like to say we help entrepreneurs design and manufacture their dreams. It could be anything ranging from medical devices to agriculture robots to industrial IoT products. We do work with a lot of startup clients, and for them, we inject a lot of experience, rigorous process, and governance to the product development and manufacturing, so that they can move very fast and with great capital efficiency to get their products to market. And even for enterprise clients, work with some of them and try to help them innovate like a startup, but also execute with choreography and speed. And I always tell people to picture a Formula One pit stop. There's a lot of people working very fast, but they're all working in concert with each other.
Mm-hmm. Now, I come from a software background. That's where I did my marketing. So I've always found the hardware space really fascinating, because I think it's a very different startup journey. So I'm going to ask you all to go back to the early days of that journey. What were the hardest things about launching a company of this kind, a hardware, a company, even if it's sort of in the very early days around idea generation or beyond that? Linda, let me start with you.
Sure, Manjula, I believe possibly the hardest thing was the fact that I could not sell an idea, and I had to show it, and this cost a lot of money. But I kept reminding myself a golden rule: if a plan fails, then I plan to fail. Another challenge was building a team that trusts me and, of course, is better than me.
Yeah, I've heard these themes. I've interviewed startup founders, and I've heard those themes across many of their stories. Ray?
Yeah, I'm gonna say a few of the same things, actually. So when I started my company, having about 10 years experience, I think I felt extremely strong in some of the core competencies like design, manufacturing. The hardest things for me were the non-technical things, simply knowing how to operate a business. The two major parts were hiring and sales. People tell you have to hire great people smarter than you. That's great, but how do you actually do that? I think there's a few things like the mechanics of interviewing, how to figure out if people are going to be a great fit. And I think if I give advice to founders, is just really learn and master the craft of interviewing, take courses, get trained, things like that, and then get the reps in. And also, how do you being in early days, the company is not known. How do you attract great people? So it comes back to having a compelling value proposition and a purpose, and communicating that. So, but, I guess that brings me to the other thing I struggle with selling, and it's something I struggle with at first and continue to work on. In general, I think especially with people with technical background tend to either look away or look down on sales profession, and the importance of selling your product or company cannot be is quite important. So I think learning how to sell is extremely powerful and a noble skill, and especially our business, we're selling highly complex services that can span from creating something where nothing existed before to engineering or manufacturing. So yeah, those are the two major I think challenges for me as a founder, is the hiring and recruiting.
Julie?
Yeah, absolutely. Starting a company and starting a hardware company is hard. So when we first started this company, I co-founded it with my husband, and we had a previous company designing performance boats, primarily human-powered boats, but getting into autonomous boats is completely different. And so it really started as a project in the corner of our garage, not intending to form a company. But then we realized that the technology we were developing had real market applicability and could do some things better than what was currently out there. So I think building the team was probably one of the really challenging parts of it. And, we had to build a team in software engineering and electrical engineering just to develop the technology. And of course, then there's the sales. So it was areas that were outside of our area of expertise. So it's, challenging to know who to hire, who are these great people when you can't necessarily assess those skills yourselves. So for us, working with good mentors and learning about interviewing definitely has been very important. And then I would say the other big challenge is financing it. Hardware costs money to develop and to scale. And so being able, and before you have something to show, it's really hard to, get buy-in from investors. So definitely financing was a challenge as well.
Yeah, lots of things that you've laid out there. Ray, I'm going to pick up on a point that you brought up about technical founders, which is what you were, and you have this, great technical background, but you need to very quickly go from being that a tech expert to a business expert. How hard is that? And actually, more importantly, because you've touched on how hard that is, how can new founders make that jump successfully?
Yeah, it is. It can be a very difficult transition to make, and I think a lot of times people don't maybe realize how difficult it is up front. And certainly, I didn't. And I think when you're looking at a startup, it's especially hard because you're trying to launch a team, a product, and a business all at the same time, with the pressure of finite resources and investor expectations. I think. We've worked with hundreds of startups over the years, and it's quite common, for us to get involved in sort of the general project business and team management into their businesses, just because that's what we're kind of hired to do, but it's just necessary to help to ensure success. Things like cash flow models, project management methods, just helping to manage team members, and I think it's just starting out with a mindset of, there's things that I don't know that I need to know, and I need to get, better at and learn about. I think a lot of times technical founders look at the tech maybe as the center of the business, and I'm sure it's very critical, but not to the exclusion of running a business. And I think simple business management and governance is an afterthought in the tech too often. And so what I encourage people to do is look to install what I call a business operating system. Should be one of the first order of operations for a startup after the concept is validated and you think you want to make a go of it. And there's things out there like EOS traction and scaling up and a number of different things. But companies are companies, and they operate quite similarly to many degrees.
So there are things that you can pick up from other startups as well. Julie, Linda, I'd love to hear you weigh in. I mean, is it mentorship? Is it having the right advisors? Is it books? Is it incubators? Like how can tech founders make that jump?
Yeah, I think you're very right, Manjula. It is all of those things. So for me, my background is molecular biology. That's what I did my graduate degree in. Hadn't really had any sales experience or really much interaction with customers. So I was involved in a number of accelerators. I went through creative destruction labs. I worked with Mars Discovery District, with Foresight Accelerator. So they have really great resources there that focus on technical founders and to complement the skills that we may not be lacking, and to really shift the view instead of, my technology is great because it can do all these cool things, to see the value proposition for the customer and what needs does it meet there. And so it's a bit of a shift in the way of thinking. And I would say the other big step for me is when we took investment and had, impact investors come in and bring that perspective that they had learned from growing companies and what were some of the key things that companies needed to succeed.
Linda?
You're absolutely right. But you had a very good point, Manjula. You mentioned books. Books are very important because some of the mentors, they keep the informations away. So they reserve it. So some books, they are really, really good. That helps. But in regards to mentorship, of course, it's very important. But having a good coach is a jackpot.
I love that. And I think, you make a good point too, that the people who have done it and who have this knowledge in their head are sometimes really busy really too busy to get into their schedules. So, you have to find other ways to get that information in. I will add one thing, Ray, and this could be just the limited experience of the founders I've interviewed, in journalism, but every founder that I've interviewed has either been good at selling or learn to become good at selling very quickly. I just don't think you can do it without having a founder, at least one of the founders. So I find it fascinating that you brought that up. Julie, you said something that I think is very important in this particular sector, financing. You've brought it up twice now, so I'm going to ask you about it. What are some of the unique obstacles that come into play when one is raising money for a hardware company?
Yeah, so I think there can be quite a bit of costs associated with developing the hardware, building it, and then manufacturing costs. It can be a long timeline until you are earning revenue. So those are all things that make it challenging to demonstrate your value and have a higher market cap for when you're raising investment funds. So I think one of the things that we've found advantageous is to utilize non-dilutive funding at those early stages to help us advance our technologies. So in Canada, we do have a number of really great granting organizations, NRC, IRAP, SDTC, and those were really instrumental in helping sort of us advance our technology to the stage where it was appealing to investors. And in those early stages, we actually entered a lot of competitions. So we won a spot in the Women in Clean Tech Challenge that was delivered by Mars Discovery District. We won the Spring Impact Investor Challenge. We went through CDL. So these things allowed us to get some traction and brought us to a level where we were investable, and then getting those early investors who really believed in the company and in the vision that our founding team had, and then they have helped us grow. And now we're raising a seed round to really take us to that next level of scaling the company.
It's interesting that you say that, Julie. Tomorrow there is a pitch competition at HardTech, and it's something I'm very excited to be moderating, but also just seeing, because I love, I know that at the end of the day, some of these companies are going to get a little bit of financing, but it's also the fact that you get to listen to these new and great ideas. Ray, I'm going to pull you into this discussion about financing because, you're a founder, you work with other founders. Julie's talked about sort of where to kind of look for the money. What about the founder themselves? How do you think they can prepare for being someone who raises money?
I guess we're self-funded, so we don't directly face that challenge, but I do work with a lot of companies and see kind of how that plays out for them. I guess what I see happening a lot is just the hardware startups especially can oftentimes don't raise enough money to reach their next milestone, and sometimes run out of funding when they're 70 or 80% of the way there, and that's not a good time to be looking for more money. And I think it comes back to the kind of simple planning and risk management, and having some experienced people on the team. I say entrepreneurs are naively optimistic in their business success, but not pessimistic enough in their path to success. And you kind of have to plan for a lot of that. And so I think sometimes people kind of try to take shortcuts, which really compromises their approach to product launch. And while in software you can kind of send updates and patches, you can't do that with hardware. You have to the product, I guess the check of success for the product is quite obvious, and it's quite apparent. It either works or it doesn't. So yeah, I think it just comes back to planning out your strategy for what are the milestones you're going to achieve, what funding you go for at what time, and making sure you have enough runway to get there.
I love your line about optimism and pessimism. I have to remember that one. Linda, I'm sure that you think about this every day of being an entrepreneur yourself. Is there something from your own experience or from the one of the vast number of people in your network that you would like to say about financing and the founder?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. When I started, I'm talking about 12 years ago, I took a tour around Silicon Valley, and I talked with so many investors, angels, VCs, and others. But I realized a few points. One, which was the most important one, was that I was not from Silicon Valley. The second one was that at that time, hardware semiconductor was really down. It was completely, it was a very depressive scenario over there. And so that was one thing. And the other point was that they were looking mostly for incremental innovations, incremental technologies. They were not looking for the whole entirely new technology. And one more thing was that the time must be right for raising money. Otherwise, it can change completely the direction of the company. Sometimes quick exit is not a good thing. And also the founders, they might lose too much too early.
Do you think that's interesting that you say that about what you heard 12 years ago? Just kind of, putting your fingers up in the air, feeling for the wind. Do you think it's changed now?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. Especially sometimes bad things are good. Pandemic was bad, but it's also good because policymakers, all this, also on the government side, they realize that they need disruptive technologies. They cannot continue with bullying one country or putting sanctions on one country to go ahead. So that needs to be changed, and it's changing. And now hardware is very important. Manufacturing in the country, in our own country, is important. So absolutely, yes, it's a good time, very good time.
Now, since you've used the E word, exit, I'm going to ask you about this. Often we hear about companies focusing on growth and thinking about a quick exit. And you've talked about how there are some reservations people should have about having a quick exit. How are you scaling your business in Canada for global markets?
Right. There is one golden rule that I follow. And that is what others they can do better, let them do it. So instead of I put investment in one area, why not I, for example, partner with guys like Ray, that they have those resources, they have the experience. So that's extremely important, to work with people that they have the enormous manpower, they have the resources, they have the established distribution channels. So that way I can stay focused on the core technology, manufacturing, IP, and know-how protection. And in regards to exit, I plan to win some of these partners, institutional investors, for an epic IPO.
Okay, announced here. That's exciting, and I can't wait to hear more about that. Julie, talk to me about your plans for global domination, let's say.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are focused right now on sales in Canada and North America, planning to expand to Europe and Asia. I think the one thing that's nice about autonomous boats is that you can deploy them internationally. You can ship it to the location and we can control it from here. And the oceans, are quite similar. And here in BC, we can test our vessel in a variety of ocean conditions so that we can ensure it operates in all of those regions. So that is the plan. We're definitely focused on scaling growth to increase the number of vessels deployed, and also starting to focus more on ocean data analytics, because of course, although we are a hardware company, the goal of these vessels is collecting ocean data so that we can better understand it. And there are a lot of software tools that can help us achieve those goals. And I was also going to add, in terms of, getting investment as a hardware company, one of the challenges I would say is that investors often think of hardware companies as not having that same growth trajectory, that it's harder to scale hardware than it is a software solution. And so, with our company and with a lot of companies, you're seeing almost this hybrid approach where although we have hardware, we're still deploying it as sort of a service model, kind of a robot as a service, where our vessel can get leased and people subscribe to a software platform. And I think that really helps position it more into this SaaS model almost, which is valued by investors at a much higher return rate than hardware sales or than one-off mission sales.
Isn't that interesting? That's actually interesting that you've actually managed to come up with a hybrid approach to fit into the I guess the expectations of investors who you need on board as well, right? So let me, Ray, I'd actually be curious about, do you work in global markets now? Are you thinking of expanding to global markets, or is most of your work in North America?
Well, we've got a global team, and a lot of our customers are Canadian based. We do manufacture all over Canada, the U.S., China, and we do ship product all over the world on behalf of our customers. So even though we're a small largely Toronto based company, we do have teams that reside all over the world, and we've been able to grow a company, about 25% a year for the last 5 years, just with local customers, and we're really just starting to make a concerted effort to move outside of Canada. But we wanted to first have a lot of the systems and processes, methods, our operating systems in place to make sure that we did maintain our quality. And it takes time to build that, a culture across remote teams as well. So.
Of course,
we're building a company for the long term. We're not looking for a quick exit as a company right now.
I would have to say, though, the last 15 months has probably been a very quick lesson in how to take some of those lessons or some of that working structure remotely, I would imagine, Ray.
Oh yeah,
right? Yeah. So this is going to be a tough ask. My next question, but let's take a go at this. We don't really talk enough about failures or those moments on the entrepreneurial journey where people may want to give up or not know what to do. Can you share a personal experience of failure with your business and how you navigated it? I'm going to ask each of you that question. Linda, I'll start with you.
Sure, yes. I agree in this regards. I agree with Mr. Henry Ford. He says, failure is only the opportunity to begin again more intelligently. So if I may share a personal experience, I signed a bad deal with the Fortune 500. So we had to say goodbye to $80 million deal. I was extremely stressed, my strategy. So what I did in this regards is that I put the complete strategy focusing on maintaining the friendship and relationship in a very good level with this partner, and put the engineering efforts on showing them something new with a wow factor that wasn't covered in the first signed agreement. That strategy worked. They came up to the table, negotiation table, and we amended the first deal and celebrated the second one.
Oh, congratulations. It's always good to hear when someone someone makes it to the other side of that. Ray?
Yeah, I think for me, it's failure to maybe act more quickly and make a change in personnel. In other words, letting someone go. A lot of I don't look at that as things that I look at as a necessary thing to do sometimes, but I'm not proud of having to do it because I look at it as a failure on my part to either hire properly or develop those people. But I had a senior management team member who was extremely bright, maybe not so much open to learning and moving along with the company, and to make it even more difficult, the person was very well respected and liked as well, and just caused a lot of personal stress, a lot of stress in the team and weighed the team down. But after it's not the decision. It's hard to make. It's sort of acting out on the decision and making the move. And the company was. I think the whole company felt sort of somewhat relieved, surprisingly, after that. Just unblocked a lot of things, and we grew very quickly. And the team even told me, how much kind of lighter they felt after the fact. So it's like this. Oftentimes, it needs to be done. It's just kind of carrying out that decision. That's the hard part.
Well, this is the thing. I think that sometimes we all romanticize the experience of entrepreneurs and founders, and we forget that there are these really tough decisions that affect people very directly that they have to make as well. Thank you, Ray. Julie?
Yeah, there's so many failures. I don't know where to start. I
love that line.
I would say one of the things I've struggled with is product market fit. And so the thing with our vessel, it's a platform. You can have a lot of different sensors. It can be used for security. It can be used for environmental monitoring. So really determining where we had the strongest value proposition. And as we were first developing our technology, the first area we went into was hydrographic surveying. So that's mapping the seafloor. And we were able to do that quite well, very well, but it wasn't where our vessel really shined, where, our ability to go offshore for months at a time, to capsize in a hurricane and keep on going. So we decided to shift. And instead we went into more passive acoustic monitoring. So listening for vessels, listening for whales. And, I think it was a hard decision because you've invested a lot of time and resources in going down this path. And then you have to, tell your team and tell your investors and your customers that, well, I'm going to focus on this. And then to stay true to that path when you have other opportunities that want to pull you in different directions, is something that I continuously struggle with.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And just as a side note, I should say as a journalist, Julie, I would love to see you write a book on all of those failures, because I agree with you. We don't discuss them often enough. And after that massive IPO, I would love to. I'm sure you're going to have one too, perhaps a fantastic exit. I would love to see that book. So we're going to be taking questions from the audience shortly. So please find your chat window. This is amazing because I'm already getting a couple sent over to me, which is great. Please keep them coming. But I do want to get the panel's thoughts on one question, simply because we have policymakers on here, we have investors listening, we have enthusiasts, other startup founders listening. So here's a question, the ask for you for the ecosystem and for policymakers. What can the ecosystem do to have people and businesses like you flourish in Canada? Who wants to start?
I start.
Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to bring your attention to the existing gap between academic research and what the industry needs. And as Einstein said, we cannot solve the problem with the same thinking we used when we created them.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I was really happy and proud to learn about the Hardware Catalyst Initiative, and I hope to see it growing and involved in making these policies reshaping Canada's semiconductor and hardware industry.
Amazing. Julie?
Yeah, I agree. Like accelerators, we're part of Venture Labs, which is helping us with our round. I'm on a board creating a ocean hub here in Victoria Coast, Center for Ocean Applied Sustainable Technologies. I think being able to provide those resources to entrepreneurs when they're early in their journey is important. And I think the other area where we could improve is within the academic environment. So encouraging more scientists to be entrepreneurs, to think creatively and innovatively about the technology that they're developing. And then the same thing in business schools to really make them aware of the value of, hard tech as being part of the innovations to drive entrepreneurial success.
You're so right. I've heard some great conversations on the need to provide scientists within our post-secondary institutions in Canada, help them commercialize some of the work that they're doing. I think that's a great idea. Ray, you get the last word on this.
Sure. I think there's no end to great ideas and technology coming out of Canada. Since we're at a HardTech conference, it's no secret that investors have typically shied away from hardware due to the longer, timelines for return on investment. I don't blame them. Like Julie had mentioned, I think the proliferation of robotics and IoT hardware is a necessary intermediary to deliver the software services to the customers. So executing on hardware development with speed and capital efficiency is extremely important. And so that's where I would kind of point, a bit of the focus, and I don't have the answers, but just how do you help people with innovation management, innovation and execution management? How do you build teams? How do you navigate innovation risk? Establishing product market fit for hardware without spending a ton of money is difficult, but it's doable. And then so that companies can achieve these attractive returns for investors in hardware.
Thank you. I have a series of questions and we're going to get to them. This one actually, Julie, is from Steve Lusk from The Artful Gardener. He asks, was your commitment to the environment a big motivator in starting your business?
Yes, it definitely was. So through my expeditions, and especially the 5 months I spent on the Atlantic Ocean, I've really developed a great deal of respect for the environment and our interaction with it, and the desire to improve it and ensure that we operate sustainably. And I very much believe this is crucial for the health of our planet. And when we think of our oceans, they provide so much for us. Half the oxygen we breathe, they've absorbed 90% of the heat that's come from greenhouse gas emissions. They provide us with so much food. 90% of our goods are shipped across them. And I think by developing technology that can allow us to operate more sustainably and also improve the health of the environments we're in, it's a very powerful combination because it's very scalable. If you have something that really meets a need for customers and at the same time is making the environment better, then you can deploy that based on customer traction, and you have the power to really make an impact.
Thank you, Julie. Linda, I'm going to put this question to you. This came from the audience as well. I'm very interested in this because you mentioned that when you were doing your conversations out in the Valley, one of the things that you heard was like, oh, you're not from the Valley. So get into this with me. Do you think being a Canadian company has affected any challenges or brought about any challenges?
Yes, I know. Yes, I know. We are as good as our technologies. That's one thing. The other thing being the individuals are important. The connections are very important. But I had a conversation with one of my mentors, and I mentioned a program in innovation ministry. And then he turned back to me and said that, oh, do you really have an innovation department in Canada? So yes, it is a little bit, it might be important, but again, be where I would be where I feel like home, where I can focus on the technology development or on something that I want to do. That's what I would do, because usually when you are surrounded in an area, you go to ocean, you see sharks. Okay, you see them, but you see also piranhas, those small fishes that they can kill you, eat you in small bites. So that was my choice, to see that, okay, Vancouver or Canada has international airports. I can focus on the technology development. This is the most important phase. And we can always work with global partners.
Thank you. Ray, you've touched on a couple of these about hard parts of the journey and easy parts of the journey, but you've said so many insightful things. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper, and this question comes from the audience. What aspect of your journey has been the hardest, and then what has been the easiest?
The hardest, I think, is just having the patience to, put all the pieces together. I think as entrepreneurs, we're just impatience is ingrained to us. We know where we want to go, and we want to get there fast because we can see the vision. And it's just having the patience and restraint to kind of put in those, put the proper pieces in place before you go too fast, because sometimes you go too fast and things break, and you end up backing up and doing some of those things over again. So just being patient. Again, I've spent a number of years building the team that we have, and we're very, I'm very proud of it now. But there was a lot of mistakes along the way there.
I'm going to ask you this: how did you? It seems like you've actually put some effort into talent management and hiring. How did you acquire those skills?
It's just learning from other business owners, entrepreneurs. I got involved with Entrepreneurs Organization. It's like a peer, group, and that was kind of the gateway for me to learning from other people, and just having the mindset of wanting to learn and wanting to get better at every aspect of running a business and growing a business and an organization and a team.
Yeah.
And just cherry picking those little ideas that you find something like, oh, there's a book here, there's a course there's someone's personal experience, and regardless of how different everyone's companies are, let me tell you, they are more alike than you will ever know.
Yeah.
Everyone's got the same challenges, so it's just really just being patient and picking up on those little nuggets of wisdom and putting them into practice, right? Is that's the other thing. So keeping an open mind, having the humility, just to learn from others, and not thinking you've got it all figured out, and just getting a little bit better day by day, really is the key.
Great answer. So we only have a couple of, actually about a minute left. So you'll have to make this very brief, but because it's a question, it's something I'm very curious about. I'm going to put this to you. What's one piece of advice you were given in your early days that is important for new founders to know? So who wants to go first? I'm kind of seeing some movement on Julie's side. Julie, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to move on to Linda, and Ray, you're going to have the last word. Julie.
Yes. So I think one of the most valuable pieces is go out there and sell it. Put it in the hands of customers. Let them tell you why they think this is great, what works and what doesn't. Don't stay in your little box and just develop. You got to go out there and push this technology out and connect with people and listen to what you hear.
Put it out there. I love that. Linda.
So let's see. As I would say, as you're creating your own great companies and technologies, do good networking. I believe also we have really good platforms like what Venture Lab is doing. So yes, and best of luck.
Oh, great line. And Ray?
Yeah, I think it's just get out there and talk to people and learn from others. It's the same thing as like similar to what Julie said. Just go and talk to your customers, talk to other business owners, learn from your peers, learn from the market. And I encourage my team to do that, because people can be a little bit heads down and doing their job. But I've learned so much from other people just by going out and interacting with them. It's a real enjoyable too, just to learn and meet people.
Well, I'm so delighted to have met you and really have all of you weigh in, really honest answers. I want to say, if people have any questions or want to follow the journeys, and I think all three companies are going to do great, I'll certainly be watching them. You can follow them on LinkedIn and certainly put questions to them there and connect with them as well. Thank you, Julie, Linda, and Raymond, for that frank talk.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
So I just loved hearing about those challenges, the advice on how emerging entrepreneurs can forge ahead. Thank you very much, and good luck to you. Good luck to you. What an incredible day it's been. We're ending on such an optimistic note on building big ideas. Thank you to all of our panelists today, and all of you for your questions, which keep coming in, and your enthusiasm. There will be more of such learnings and insights tomorrow, including something that I can't wait to see at the pitch competition. So I hope you stick around today and connect with like-minded individuals in this tech ecosystem. You heard our entrepreneurs talk about how important networking is. Well, you can do it here today. This platform, Feedloop, a Canadian company, by the way, provides you with 3 engaging ways to network. You can join a virtual group discussion with up to 25 individuals. You can directly message those you've been waiting to connect with, or get matched with attendees by filling out a really simple form. Thank you, and stay on. And remember, we'll be announcing our first winner of our general survey contest at 2:30 p.m.